Okay, okay. Do we have some kind of like... Sorry, do we have like some clicker or something? Do we have like a clicker? Sorry. Completely went over my head. I can maybe click like this, but would be better. Okay, sorry for trouble. And today my talk is Granular update to Vue 3 for big projects using CSS scoping and model federation. So first thing I want to talk about is emotional impact of this project. So I thought a bit about like as a dream, like can you use both Vue 3 and Vue 2 in one project? Like, is it possible at all? And my thinking before, like maybe half a year ago or so, was like, yeah, no, it's madness. Don't do it. Like you will have a lot of pain. Not possible. And I still made an attempt, and it's kind of worked. So I want to share it with you today. And a couple of words about myself. I spent some time with front-end development, and I mostly worked on VueJS, a lot of projects. Some were like as a developer, some were so like more of like leadership positions. I'm currently holding a CTO at Epic Max position, and I'm also creator and lead developer of VueStickUI. And I also have a lot of experience transitioning from Vue 2 to Vue 3 for projects of like different sizes. Okay, so today's talk agenda. First, I want to just give you some kind of scope, a landscape. What is your possibilities for transition? What options do you have? Second thing, I want to have a bit of a project with you, a demo project, where I will explain steps you need to do to achieve this like model federation CSS scoping approach. And second, I will cover some edge cases. These are not full edge cases. It's an experimental approach. It's like mad scientist stuff. So yeah. And my goal is that by the end of presentation, we'll have a powerful tool for project transitioning. And the cool thing about model federation is that it's not only for Vue 3 transitioning. You can also use it for other technologies. Like you can transition from React to Vue, or like something else, maybe jQuery. I don't know. Okay, so here's the ways you can transition. First is single step, like you just transition everything at once. Ideal option if you have if it's an option for you. Second, I think would be something like gradual transition with iframes, and instead of iframes, you can just use static pages. Works kind of the same. And third approach is like in the middle of these two. Conceptually, is a gradual transition with module federation CSS scoping. So when to use? Okay. Sorry, I think I have to go here. First time using VueJS, so it's still like not smooth for me. So first approach would be single step transition. Here you have like before you have full project in production on Vue 2. After you have full project on Vue 3, there is no intermediate steps. Why it's not good? It takes a while. Like literally, you can spend maybe a year if a project is big or more. It has to be fully completed at once. You cannot like leave some parts untouched. You have to do everything at once. And that might sometimes not be ideal because there could be some parts of your application that are just no priority. You do not just bother with them. Maybe one client is using it or something. And it's also pretty tough for QA because QA has to pretty much go through all application after it's done. So it's like also a big staggered effort for them. The benefit is that it's focused development work. Nothing goes outside of this project. It's like everything. You don't throw away everything after that. And it doesn't impact any end users in any way. So end users will just get everything packaged after you're done. They don't know about your transition at all, which is pretty cool. When should you use it? When performance is paramount for you, because this is most performant approach. And you don't need incremental upgrades, which could be the case if your project is small, or you can just have a lot of development power and you can do it fast. So, second option is gradual transition with iframes. Here, you will start again from view to application. Then you would do a part of the application on different subdomain, and you would use an iframe to contain it. And I have an image here that is like a Vue2 wrapper, but you can also start with Vue3 wrapper. Doesn't matter much. And you will go like creating more and more parts of iframes that are Vue3 and less than Vue2. And by the end of this transition, you will have a full application or maybe some small parts that are on Vue2. Why it's not a great solution? This is also like, this is something I talk from experience because we had a lot of customers' complaints from iframes. We thought as a developers it's not noticeable. It actually is. So performance overhead is big and very noticeable. It's also, you have to use serialized communication. So just like connecting all this system of iframes with each other is a pain. You will also probably meet some course issues with just domain communication and frames again. Why it's good? Allows incremental upgrades. This is an incremental approach. And very good thing is that you won't have CSS and JS conflicts because iframes are doing a very good job at like containing this stuff. There is no leakage. When you should use it? So when it's very important for you to avoid regressions because you won't have any conflicts there. And performance is not important for you. Maybe you can spend some time with like poor performance. Maybe it's an internal app or something like that. And this is a third approach, and it's a bit of a spoiler because I didn't show you a project, but hope you can forgive me. So we will start again with Vue2 project. And we will create a host and remote pair, where remote applications would be on Vue2 and host application would be on Vue3. And then we will change remote pages, remote components, to Vue3 native components one by one. And our end goal is again fully transition Vue3 application. Why it's not good? It is experimental approach. I didn't find a lot of data, of someone else doing this. So there might be some hidden dangers I don't know about. There is also potential for conflicts because for iframes we have iframes. They provide nice containment, and here we don't have anything like that. So there is potential for conflicts definitely. Benefit is that it allows incremental upgrades. Performance is less of an issue, so you have a bit bigger bundle size, but apart from that, it is very smooth for end user. They don't notice. When should you use it? So where performance matters for you, but doesn't have to be like spot on, super perfect. Yeah, and we can start with example project repo. If you have laptop and you want to follow me, you can scan the code and check the repo on your own. But I can get started with that. So we will start from Vue CLI project. This is something maybe you're familiar with if you work with Vue2. So we will use modern technology all the time. Bootstrap CSS, Vue CLI, Vue 2.6, and Vue Ultra 3. Let's imagine this project starts, and it looks like this. Very modern Bootstrap application with navigation and some checks we need. Next step for us would be we need to prepare our project a bit. So it is always a good idea when you do a technology transition, you want to actually try to refactor some stuff you can do in advance. So in our case, we will do transition from Vue CLI to Vite, and from Vue 2.6 to 2.7. And 2.7 is needed for us to use Vite version, so it's mandatory kind of. And using Vite at both host and remote applications would help us with configs. Again, it would allow us to have consistent configs instead of doing like a mess of Webpack and Vite. And we would also do some refactoring and updates. After that, my suggestion would be to go with a monorepo project, but this is not mandatory. You can just use 2 separate projects, 2 repositories, not a big deal. But I used PNPM workspaces, and in PNPM workspace, you would have like 2 folders, maybe grouped in packages or something. And in my case, it's 1 folder for Vue 2 application and 1 folder for Vue 3 application. And then we would create an empty Vue 3 project within monorepo. There we would use modern technology of current time, which would be a Tailwind CSS and Vite. Maybe not super modern, but good enough. Here's how project would look like. Nothing maybe interesting here. Next step for us would be set up a module federation. So for module federation, there are 2 concepts that are very important. Is like a host and remote. And host application is the like top level application, and remote is like a bundle piece. And host would assemble these bundle pieces into itself and present something you want to present. For that, we need to add dependencies. We would use a Vite plugin federation. Both projects use Vite, so it's possible for us to just add it to a project root, to a monorepo root, and make it accessible for both projects. Then we will configure remote. So here what we do is we expose some files, compiled files from remote to a host, and we define them there. So in our case, it would be like main federation.js. And if we look at main federation.js, we have some like view logic, and we also expose router. And it is important that this file wouldn't work in dev mode, so you wouldn't like be able to just run npm run dev and it will be available readily. Doesn't work this way, sadly. Maybe like will in the future, but not now. Instead, you have to compile it every time. So you would compile your remote application, and then you would run host in dev mode, and then it will be fine. But you cannot run both in dev mode. After that, you would configure host application. And there, as you can notice, we mentioning remote entry. We would also mention like on which host it's located, full URL to it. And after that, we would set up a Vue 2 application within Vue 3. So for that, we would create a component, and there we would fetch remote and create routes from this remote. And we would have an application that looks very close, exactly the same, but it is more modern application. It is like right now model federated. So another interesting approach here is how do we sync router here. So for that, we need to use 2 features of the router, router mode. You can have a memory mode for router, which is like it wouldn't sync anything to URL. So it's like self-composed thing, and you can like interact with it with methods, but it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't like do anything with URL. And second mode is router. So for our approach to work, we need only Vue 3 router to operate with URL, and then Vue 2 router would just sync with Vue 3 router. And in code, it would look like this. It is pretty simple. So as soon as one row change, we will just try to change another. If there is no change, we do nothing. So pretty straightforward. Third technology we want to use here is CSS scoping. And this one is actually, I'm surprised it works so well. The problem with transitioning from like old technology is, let's say you have Bootstrap and you have Tailwind, and both of these have a bunch of helpers. And these helpers do not really like each other, so you cannot use both. And just moving from one technology to another is very hard. So what we can do instead is we can prefix Bootstrap so that it only applies to a particular area on the screen, particular DOM element. And we can do this with use of auto-prefixer. And the configuration would look something like that. And conceptually, it would just add this like hash appview ID for all your CSS. And this would solve an issue of CSS for us. After that, we would migrate pages one by one. And our end goal is Vue 3. Hopefully, we can reach it. And I have an example app for you to show, so that you know I'm not lying. It's still possible. Here's an application I showed you, and here you see this shows Vue 3. So this component is rendered in Vue 3, and this component is rendered in Vue 2. And here we have Bootstrap, and here we don't have Bootstrap. So we are kind of achieved what we want. And you can have this example again in the repo by the link to see how exactly it works. Now I have some time to go through edge cases because this is very experimental. And I covered some areas, I tried some stuff, but not too much. So first thing I tried is whether DevTools do work with this approach, and they do not really well. They only work for Vue 3, but for Vue 2 you would have like just def element, nothing, and no information will be you have. So the way you can solve this is you can run two applications at once. And that way, DevTools would be applied to Vue 2. You will use Vue 2 DevTools, and then for Vue 3 application, you would use Vue 3 DevTools. One more gimmick is that you need to support two versions of build for your Vue application when you're doing this. So one version of build would be for you to enable development work on Vue 2 application, and this would be main.js. It will look the same as main.js you had before. But then you also have to support the second entry point, which would be remote.js. And they're different. So, and these are also bundled differently. So this is a bit of a pain to have, but this has to happen. You won't be able to make it work with only one file. There is also a small performance decrease. So we have, for these model federated applications, two sets of JS and CSS. And it's not perfect, but it's still tree-shaped. So if you don't land on the page where this JS and CSS is fetched, it's actually not fetched at all. So there is no impact as long as you don't land on the page. So there are a couple of things you can actually reuse straight away within host and remote. And the things that you can reuse very well utility functions, and you can also reuse API handling. So this you just import, and no issues at all. But there are things that are a bit trickier. So I tried to play with reactive objects, and this worked kind of fine. So if we go to the application, and we go here, there is a reactive state. We can click here, and it syncs here, and this is done just by using Vue observable and Vue reactive, and it syncs fine with one object. But I wouldn't recommend to rely on this technology heavily because I can foresee some very unexpected performance issues with it. So it's a bit scary for me already. And I tried store, and store is like didn't work for me at all. I think someone smarter than myself would be able to figure it out, but yeah, my verdict so far is it's a bit too much. It's a bit too much. So I would rather serialize data and pass it in serialized shape rather than rely on this like very dangerous stuff for production applications, especially. Also, CSS scoping is a bit of a tricky thing in itself, because you might have noticed that we have that Bootstrap is scoped. That is fine, that is fancy, works good. But Tailwind, it's kind of going its way because it's like attached to the top level of application. And there are some approaches we can make it work, but there is no like good one-line approach. Okay, so you can let's say rename. Look through the list of Bootstrap helpers and look through a list of Tailwind helpers and just rename helpers that don't do clash and then move them back after your transition. And you can do some other stuff, like maybe you can scope Bootstrap, scope Tailwind, and then for root level stuff, apply maybe BEM and then replace it. It's possible, but it's a lot of pain to do. So yeah, no good approaches here, but decent approaches. It might get better after we get support for scope at rule, which allows you to like select a scope of DOM, which you want to apply a selector to, and then we would be able to just like set Tailwind to apply like only on root level or only like for these pages. But right now, Firefox is like holding us down, so we have to wait for it for major browsers. And I guess that's about it from my side. So takeaway from this is that you can use model federation and CSS scoping for your Vue 3 transition. It is an effective solution, and you can also probably use it for some other transition from different frameworks. And thank you so much for your attention and time.